Yesterday, Rishi Sunak announced his winter economy plan. This replaced the standard budget to reflect the new lockdown measures, the impact on businesses and individuals for the next 6 months. As expected, a replacement to the furlough scheme was announced, but how will it work? Well, my name is John Davis, and in this short video, I'll explain. So what was the furlough scheme? Well, for the past 6 months, the Coronavirus Job Retention Scheme, or furlough, was brought in to protect jobs. Where employees weren't needed, the government would pay up to 80% of their normal wage while they were off. Initially, employees didn't have to pay anything, so millions of jobs were protected during lockdown. Now, it was also accepted this was a temporary measure, and over the past few months it's been reduced. And in October, the government is due to pay 60% of wages, while employers pay 20% if those people are off. But at the end of October, the scheme was due to end. Now, with the new measures introduced this week over office working and curfews on the hospitality industry, and there's a lot of local lockdowns as well, and with tourism and many other parts of the economy really struggling, we were heading towards a cliff edge on the 31st of October. Hundreds of thousands, potentially millions of jobs were at risk of redundancy next month. So what did Rishi announce yesterday? Well, the furlough scheme will now be replaced by a new job support scheme for 6 months from the 1st of November. Job support scheme isn't as generous as furlough. The idea is it only protect jobs that are viable in the long term. To do this, the government will only protect jobs where the employer is willing to fund the majority of the cost. Furlough has cost the government over £8 billion per month, but there is a worry that it's being used to pay people who will never again actually be needed in the current jobs. So how will the new scheme work? Well, the new scheme will allow employees to work part-time with the government part funding the remainder. To be eligible, an employee must work for at least 1/3 of their normal hours. For any hours that aren't worked, the cost will be split. 1/3 will be paid by the government, 1/3 will be paid by the employer, and 1/3 will remain unpaid. This effectively means that the government will fund up to 22% of employees' wages. And that's actually capped at £697.92 per employee per month. Employers using the scheme will still be eligible for the £1,000 job retention bonus for any previously furloughed staff who are still on the payroll through this scheme or through normal employment as at 1st of February 2021. So what businesses are eligible? Well, all small and medium businesses with under 250 employees are eligible to use the scheme, and they don't need to have used the furlough scheme in the past. For larger businesses, they'll need to actually demonstrate they've had a drop in sales due to COVID-19, and they may be required to actually stop any dividend payments while they're claiming on the scheme. So how will it actually work, and how much will the funding be for? Well, to give 2 examples just to show the kind of percentages and how that works. And let's say we've got an employee who works who earns £1,000 per month. To make the figures easy for me, I'm just an accountant. Now, if they earn £1,000 per month and only work for 1/3 of the time, well, the first third, £333, is paid by the employer as normal for the hours worked. Of the remaining money, the remaining £667, 1/3 of it will be paid by the employer, that's £222. 1/3 by the government, that's another £222, leaving £222 broadly unpaid. So basically, in total, the employer pays £555, the government £222, the employee receives a total of £777 out of the normal £1,000. Now, what about if they work a bit more time? So what about if they work half the time? Same employee, £1,000 per month. In this case, the first £500 is paid by the employer for the time actually worked. And of the remaining hours, £167 is paid by the employer, £167 by the government, leaving £167 unpaid. So the totals this time are that the employer pays £667, the government £167, the employee gets £834 for having worked kind of half their normal hours. So what's it mean overall? Well, I think most people recognise that the furlough scheme kind of can't go on indefinitely. It costs too much. Broadly, it's costing about £8 billion per month, and to an extent, it may be being used to kind of protect jobs that are no longer viable. However, there's also recognition there's this kind of cliff edge approaching on the 31st October, with the scheme kind of abruptly ending and leaving a lot of redundancies on that day. Now, the new scheme is not as generous, but hopefully it will support jobs that are viable in the longer term. And also the employers who do keep people on through this scheme until the 1st February will get that £1,000 kind of bonus as well. However, I guess kind of looking at it from looking at some of our clients and across the board as an accountant, you've got to ask how many businesses would pay 55% of the standard salary for someone who's only working for 33% of the time. If you think about it, if you have 3 people each working 1/3 of the time, you're paying 165% of the salary for one job to be done. I've already actually been asked by someone, can I just pay for the hours worked and not bother with the scheme? Now, what it will need though is a genuine assessment of the cash over the full 6 months to see whether it kind of stacks up. And actually think about, is this person actually going to be needed full time again in the future? And looking at the full 6 months as well, as you can take into account the fact there'll be that £1,000 bonus coming in as well, and make a genuine assessment employee by employee. My gut feel is that some of the industries that need it most, including hospitality, may well be the ones who actually decide not to use it due to the cost of paying staff who aren't there. And therefore perhaps a more targeted scheme could have been introduced to protect jobs in the worst hit industries like hospitality and tourism. Overall though, I hope this will be a help for businesses and employees, and it just remains to be seen how much of a help it will be. I hope that helped you in terms of understanding the scheme. If you have any questions, please do get in touch. As usual, if you did find this helpful, please do like the video and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more videos. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.